Good evening, and welcome to another installment of Vampire the Masquerade, Salem by Night. My name is Will. I will be your storyteller tonight, and we have the pleasure of having our full coterie tonight. We have the amazing Jane Arwen, a once actress turned vampire ingenue, the impeccable Connie Eastworm, who has come a long way from her rural background, and Professor Albert Frost, who met an untimely end at the behest of his curiosity. Salem by Night is going to see what these characters do given the state of the world. It is 1984 in Salem, Oregon, and it has been 4 years since the beckoning has called all the elders into whatever dark recess of the world they have crawled back into. And the younglings, those Ancilla and the in-betweeners who are left in this world of darkness, have to come to terms with what this means, how everything has changed, and where everything is going. But we're going to start with Jane. Jane is played by Joyce, who is JoyToy13 here on Twitch. And she will be streaming tomorrow, starting with Alien Isolation. I can't wait to pop in and out of that and see your face during that. But last we left Jane, it was 1963. And you were in the company of one Anastasia Richards. You have devoured this transient human and whatever friend they had sleeping with them. And there's a tint of some familiar liquid coursing through your body right now. It is a mixture of bourbon, it is a mixture of vodka, but it has tinctured the blood in such a way that it is reminiscent and homely, and it has painted your desires from now on, in that this is the only blood that is going to sustain you moving forward. But Anastasia grabs your hand, and she immediately starts to kind of show you how to grab the arms of these transients and start to move them into a different area. Kind of like she's trying to hide the bodies. What's going through your mind right now?
Definitely confusion and overwhelmed at everything that's happened. But there's like a sense of urgency that I definitely understand from the situation.
Yeah. She immediately dumps her body and rushes over as you're kind of struggling to maneuver yours and come to grips with what's happening, and she helps you dump your body as well. And you see her pull out a handkerchief and just start to wipe her mouth and her lower jaw. And she kind of reaches out and she starts to wipe your face as well with her hand. And she looks at you. She's like, are you going to be okay? This is a big step for you. And things are going to change. But I think you can do so much more now, here, in this circle. And I hope you don't prove me wrong. And you see her start to turn towards the car. What do you do?
Follow.
Okay. You see the driver nod at the both of you as you approach, and he opens the door for you guys. And you drive off to this well manicured garden in front of this beautiful but quaint home. And he pulls in. She gets out and she kind of helps you exit the car with her. And there's a sudden dread in the bottom of your stomach as you see on the horizon just the blue, black, purple of night starting to become assaulted by the orange and yellow of what is the morning that's coming. There's no hurry in her footsteps, but you do see her, you do feel her kind of urge you along. And as you step into the house, you notice that the windows outside are just a facade. Everything is boarded up. The house is pitch black. And there is a sense of what would become known as a end of the world prepper. There's just security. There's reinforcements. It is, for lack of a better term, it is a fortress. But she leads you through what look to be empty rooms of what could be a living room, what should be a dining room, and they're just barren, empty. Like if the house wasn't clean, you would almost imagine it to be abandoned and decrepit and just haunted. But the only furniture you see is once she leads you to the bedroom, and you see that there's this masterfully crafted 4-poster bed with this beautiful silk canopy, and the closet door is open to what looks like this amazing 12, maybe 15 foot long walk-in closet of just dresses and shoes and all the finery that come with her station in life. And she kind of motions for the driver to leave you, and as she climbs onto the bed, you see her start to just undress. And she pats the bed next to you as she is just completely naked in front of you, and just a couple of driblets of blood stain her upper chest, kind of like a little Orion's belt of just blood droplets. Do you
Do I what?
do you sit
Do I
with her?
join?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
A lot of questions. As in, what the heck is this place?
Okay. You see she smiles and she holds out her hands almost like not a motherly figure, but somehow more of like a best friend or an older sister or like an aunt. And there's a warmness that wasn't there before. And as the two of you kind of stare at each other for that brief moment, there's an interesting dynamic between the two of you, and then the world goes dark. You wake up the next night, this ravenous hunger in your belly. The world is still dark, especially inside the house, and you can hear her moving about, but you then feel her and another set of hands kind of lifting you up to place you on the bed. And there's a moment where right before they place you on the bed, you kind of start to get that rush of life back in you. And there's the reactionary and kind of hard to forget reflex of breathing in, but your lungs no longer work. There's no need to pump air in and out so that your blood circulation flows. And as your breathing shallows and comes to a stop eventually, you just hear her give an order in the darkness, and you hear her kind of walking towards the closet. But you hear the driver shuffle as he sets you down on the bed, or rather kind of shows you with your hands where the bed is so you don't trip.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes over, and in the outside hallway you see a light turn on, and it kind of creates this alley of light in the bedroom. And then you hear the familiar snap, and another light turns on in the closet, and there's this other alley of yellow incandescent light that comes out and forms almost like an A, where that meets at its apex where you are on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And the doorway to the room, you can see the driver standing, arms crossed. And in the closet, you see her still naked, kind of trying to pick out her dress for the day. And she looks at you, and she motions for the rest of the clothes, and she's like, "You can take your pick as long as it fits, but we will have to get you some of your things and maybe get some tailor-made for you. I don't think you'll be strutting around in that anymore." And she kind of motions to what you're wearing.
Mm.
And she's like, "You asked what this is, and the short answer is this is my home, one of my homes. But this," and she motions to the two of you, like pointing at you and pointing at herself. She's like, this is a little more complicated. I've chosen you to make this life of mine a little more bearable, I think you could say, in a moment of greed. I like your fire, Jane Arwen. It's very reminiscent of what embers have kind of blown out in me. And I think that you will make a fine addition to my group. But I am... And she kind of smiles as she hasn't had to say this out loud in some time, but she smiles and she looks at you with her piercing eyes, and she's like, I am a vampire. I have been one for some time now. And I can tell you that you are a vampire now. And I understand if it's not something you want. I have made arrangements with Hugo, and she motions to the gentleman outside, and she's like, if this is something that you don't want for yourself, I can have Hugo take you out back and end it for you. But those are your only options, unfortunately. It's an immortal life or an end to it all. So I hope you show some selfishness in this moment. And you see her pick out a pantsuit, and she starts to put it on.
Well, it's not really much of a choice then, is it? Okay, I guess this is my life now, so I'm gonna pick out a dress. I'm gonna pick out the best dress in the closet.
Okay. There are several, in fact. And if you'd like to pick out the best one, let's have you roll an awareness and composure.
Okay.
And let's see what you come up with.
Is it working?
Nope, hasn't popped up for me. But you do see that there are several dresses of all styles, and some look like they've been out of the silhouette for decades. Some of them look to be almost like the ones in the back seem to almost be Rubenesque and kind of old worldy. Like they look like the kinds you would imagine they wore in Shakespearean times. Very full, very puffy sleeves. But you do end up finding, let's see, awareness and composure, right? There we go. So you pick one out that looks to be your size, and with some minor alterations, it will fit you like a glove. But it is form-fitting, to her at least, and just this slender, deep red satin that just feels like oil sliding up your skin as you slide into it. But she watches you dress, and as you finish, she motions. She's like, "There's a bathroom across the hall that we can use to freshen up. There's a lot that we have to go through, and I want you to know that you're not alone in this. There's things that we can do together, and I hope that you can forgive me one day for this unbearable choice I forced on you." And she kind of steps up to Hugo, pats him on the chest. He nods and steps away, and you hear him walking down the rest of the hall, down the rest of the house itself, because it just echoes. And you're wondering why you didn't hear it the night before. And it's almost like your first thought is, what if Hugo didn't come inside with you? Does that mean that he just stayed outside, or did he go somewhere else? And your mind starts racing, but everything kind of starts to just slide away as the questions of what your life is becoming start to come to the forefront. But even more so, there's that other voice of just thirst, that hunger, and there's just that nagging kind of clawing up at the top of your stomach, just right where that esophagus kind of ends, and you can just feel it starting to twirl and work its way up very, very slowly, but it's there, and it's just not painful, but it bothers. But you see her wash up, and she just motions for you to feel free to use the bathroom, and she sits on the toilet. Anything you'd like to know, I'll be happy to answer.
I'm hungry. Where can we go to eat?
Well, we have to figure out what your predilection is. Unfortunately, those of us in our bloodline, at least, are cursed to only be able to feed from a certain source. Mine is, and you see her smile, and you don't know if it's the light playing tricks on you or if there's an actual blush on her cheeks, but she kind of looks up at you. She's like, mine is women, particularly those that I find intelligent. But she kind of slaps her knees and stands up and starts to walk out. And she's like, so let's find out what is going to sustain Jane Arwen, shall we? And she holds out her hand to you.
Okay. Take one look in that mirror and then grab her hand and let's go.
All right. It is a pale imitation of what you were. The hair is a bit disheveled still from sleeping on the floor. There's dried blood kind of in a general map of some European country on your chest. And the dress makes you look like you should be on a honeymoon somewhere. And instead you are facing an eternity of sustaining yourself on human blood with this woman who you barely know anything about. But she does take on a very motherly role to you as you progress through the years with her, even as she is driven away from California by an opposing faction, and a adversary that she made a long time ago. You two end up at the behest of Frankie Toombs going to Salem, Oregon in the north, somewhere quiet but still within the reach of the bright lights of Hollywood and Los Angeles and the hub of what it is to be on the West Coast. But Salem is different. There's more quiet to this. There's a change of scenery as the big city isn't as big. It's still a city to be reckoned with. There's two sides to Salem, as it's split by a huge river, and she ends up moving into an apartment in the middle of Salem proper. And she starts to just teach you how to be a force to be reckoned with. And she starts to teach you your powers and what you can do with your blood if you only kind of focus and concentrate and manage the beast within in just a certain way, a certain caress and a certain nuance. But it comes time, finally, that she lets you know that you are going to be introduced to the kindred of the city, that you have earned your place as an adult among them, and that you are more than capable of kind of learning the ways of what else is out there and what the other clans represent, and how the hierarchy of what she keeps calling the Camarilla is. And there's a sense of trepidation that kind of washes over you, because it's only ever been you and her and Hugo for the most part. You've dealt with Frankie a couple of times, but anytime that he has brought up clan business, she's always motioned for him to not do it in front of you. Always with the excuse that you are not ready for it. And now it seems that as for the last 4 years, you've been kind of scrambling. Now is the first time that you can actually feel like there is something exciting that is going to happen to you. And I think there's a hope that all of this is for something greater, as you've come to terms with your abilities, which we've talked about. And now all that's left is for you to find what you're wearing tonight and to join her as you finally get to go to these monthly meetings that she's been going to on the last Friday of every month, and what you have only come to learn as it being called the Elysium. Now you're actually going to be in the Elysium with her and with all these other vampires that are part of not only your world now, but your collective. And people are going to have expectations about you. And that is a little scary for the first time. It's almost like being on stage again. So let's see what happens when we get to Elysium. I'm going to shift over to a much different time period and a different year as we shift over to July 4th, 1958, and the amazing Ashley, who you can find at Ashes to Smashes, who is one half of the Baby Lambs podcast, and who is just started their 4th or 5th season of Hunt a Killer.
Fourth season.
4th. Okay. Well, last we left Connie, she was standing or kneeling over the body of what can only be described as a disgusting human being known as Preston. Your mouth is still on his throat as you feel the last vestiges of his strength fade and his body goes limp. And you are standing next to Joshua, who looks at you with his beard and mouth full of blood as well, and just kind of has this shit-eating grin on his face. And the door opens and you see Antoine walk in as well, and he looks down at the mess. He looks up at you and then up at Joshua and just shakes his head. But Josh grabs your hand and starts to walk towards him, and he just looks at him and is like, I'm going to trust you to get rid of this. I need to look after her. He lets out a long sigh and just nods quietly. Joshua, not forcibly, but with strength, pulls you out into the darkness that is surrounding what was this celebration, and the dark looks brighter to you. The loud bangs are deafening in your ears, and the colors that wash the evening of just these fireworks going off are so vibrant and so much more colorful. And then for a moment, your death sinks in and all of the colors go pale. The bright reds and yellows and oranges of these fireworks just become muted and almost like a sepia picture of what they would have been. A kind of idea of what they should look like. But he pulls you along until you get to this really kind of beat up truck, and he pulls you around the passenger side, opens the door, ushers you in, closes the door, and then rushes around to the driver's seat and then drives off. All the while, he's just kind of like trying to figure out where to touch you in an appropriate manner. Like he's touching your knee, he's kind of touching your shoulder, it's kind of like patting your elbow, and all the while he's just like, look, don't panic, this is This is not my first time. Just, I need you not to scream, and I need you not to panic. Can you do that for me?
So Connie, so I lift. So I'm visibly shaken. I'm trying to be quiet, but everything just happened so fast. I'm in just supreme shock and filled with a level of anxiety and confusion, and I just bring my knees up to my head
Mm-hmm.
in an effort to make myself as small as possible. And I just sort of hug my knees and try to cry, if I'm even able to produce tears in this state, but I'm trying to find some sort of relief from all of the feelings.
You go through the motions of what it was to cry at some point, and you don't feel anything actually come out for a moment, and then there's a very different sensation, and as you kind of bat your eyes and flutter that sensation away, your vision is tainted red, and as you kind of bring your hand up and wipe it away from your eye and you look down, you notice that your whole hand is now red. And as you kind of lean out to look at the rearview mirror or the side rear mirror, you can see that you're crying tears of blood.
I am definitely, like, if I wasn't freaking out before,
Mm.
I'm freaking out now. Now is the point where I'm making like the noises.
Yeah.
Where where I know that if I go any louder, I don't know if this guy is gonna, you know, be another enemy, I guess.
Yeah.
Like he's like, if I'm gonna be prey to him too, but I almost don't care, because at this point I feel like I'm dying all over again because I'm seeing blood come from my eyes.
Yeah. He doesn't raise his voice. He just does again the kind of like the knee, the elbow, the shoulder. He's just like, hey, listen, I need you to stay here with me, and listen, what's your name? What's your name? Do you remember your name?
I don't answer. I don't answer. I'm just gonna. I just breathe, and every time he tries to make a move to like touch my knee, all of these like attempts to calm me down
Yeah.
are not gonna work on me.
Okay.
Every time he does that, I flinch or I sort of kick or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
I'm very suspicious.
He recoils. Not angry or anything, just kind of like defensively. And after a moment, he's like, all right, I'm just gonna call you. Look, I'm just gonna call you Glowworm. All right, I need to give you some kind of name. So listen, Glowworm, we're heading to a safe place. I need you to calm down, and I can explain everything if you just stop making those noises.
So I sort of, because I'm shocked by the name Glowworm of all names,
Yeah.
it kind of knocks me into a sense of presence. And I do start to calm down, but I still don't say anything. So slowly I'll start bringing my knees down, but I'm very still and I'm looking forward.
Okay. He's like, okay, just breathe, in and out, and just, I need you to know that this is not the end of the world. You are going to be okay. Okay? Can you say you're gonna be okay for me, Glowworm?
I'm bleeding from my face.
Okay, that'll do for now. I just needed to make sure that you can speak and that you haven't lost your ability to because of the change.
That's all I say.
Okay. Can you tell me how old you are, Glowworm? Can you tell me where you come from, who your people are?
No.
All right. I feel like we're making progress, and I appreciate what the effort you're putting in. So let's say that we make everything up for you. Then how about you come from a family of 4, and your mama she raises chickens. Is that close? All the while he's still driving.
I'm just sort of like, at this point, I'm just sort of like shaking my head and looking at the little visor.
Yep.
In the top, and I'm just shaking my head like, this isn't real. This isn't real.
Okay.
I'm under the tree. I'm with Preston. I got knocked out by what, like a firework?
He's like, I mean, if you want to go back and be with Preston, I can turn this around. That's not a place you want to be in, given what he was going to do to you.
Huh? Who's he?
I'm assuming Preston was the man who was trying to force himself on you. Is that safe to assume?
How did you know that? I thought that happened. It was real. Oh my god, that was real.
Yeah.
Like,
Listen.
Where's he?
Okay, Glowworm. One question at a time. So, what do you want to know first?
Is he? Did I
find the words. Technically, yes. But if it makes you feel any better, I had to go with him first. So don't.
I think I'm gonna be sick. I think I'm gonna be sick.
I hope not. That would be bad for you, and we're gonna need to find somebody else to feed off of if you do.
Why feed what?
So.
Okay.
Try to stomach it, and again you see him put his hand on your shoulder. But this time it's not a pat, like it's an actual like placement of his hand. He said, "You're gonna be all right, Glowworm. You got a fight in you, and I appreciate that."
Did we meet at the? Did you turn into? Did we meet earlier today?
He nods. We did. I'm glad that your short-term memory is unaffected. That's a good sign.
You tried to dance with me?
Maybe. You smell like strawberries, Glowworm. I used to know a girl like that.
Okay, so is he that? Wait, does that mean that Preston is dead? Is that what is that what happened?
You drained him, so he is in fact no longer on this world. Good riddance, I think.
But does that mean well, what happens to him? My parents know, people know I was out with him, and now he's. I start to cry again.
Okay.
And then the blood comes back, and that freaks me out again.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a cycle.
He does let go once the cycle starts all over again. He lets go, and he just concentrates on driving. And as you kind of start rocking back and forth and trying to figure out what your life has turned into, you see him pull up to what looks like an abandoned house on the edge of town. And he kind of gets out. He goes around and opens the passenger door, and kind of this time he just kind of holds his hand out to you, like he doesn't pull you out of the car.
So he just offers it to me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take it, but
Okay.
I am gonna. I'll just slowly get out of the car.
All right. Yeah.
I have my hands like this.
He smiles. He's like, "All right, Glowworm, have it your way, but come on." And you see him just open the door as it is unlocked. And as you walk into the house, following him, it looks like there's just years of neglect in this house. There's mold and such on the furniture. It looks like no one has been in here to clean. Parts of it are starting to be reclaimed by nature. And he just kind of like walks around some of the messier spots, and you can see that there is a clean kind of walkway area, like a little trail of where it's safe to walk, or that has been traveled extensively. And he walks over to what looks to have been a bedroom at some point, and you see him kind of push the bed to the side, and there's a hole in the floor that looks like maybe 6 feet by 4 feet, like just this ovular shape of where floorboards were kind of ripped up and out, and there's a space underneath, and you see him kind of like jump down, and he's about 6'2", 6 foot, and it comes up to about the bottom of his pecs, the amount of distance that's underneath the house. And he's like, if you want, I can help you down, or you can climb down on your own, but it will be safer down here if you don't mind. You could sleep under the bed if you want. I've done it before. It's gonna be a lot safer down here.
I have to sleep under. Why can't I sleep on the bed? Why do I have to be in a hole?
Well, Glowworm, the thing is, it's difficult to say this without. Can I get you to promise you're not going to go into another one of your scenes? And the way he says it just kind of offends you.
What do you mean? Sure.
All right. I don't believe it, but you're not human anymore, Glowworm. That's why you're crying blood. That's why you technically can't breathe. I mean, you don't need to anymore. You're a vampire, for lack of a better term. It's complicated. You're gonna want to be down here when the sun comes up. It's safer.
Vampires aren't real.
Okay.
Sir.
Sure.
But I guess I was crying blood, and I did eat my boyfriend, so...
Ex-boyfriend at this point, and you see him smiling.
So, if I go in that scary hole,
It's not scary.
You're not gonna. So what? So what does that mean? So like, I can't be outside. The sun is not a thing. Like,
That's a thing.
I don't know. I only know what people have told me on the street. I don't know anything about vampires. So like,
well, it's
the
a learning
sun.
it's a learning process, and the fact that you are not going into one of your scenes right now, it's a very big leap forward for you, and I appreciate it.
It's because I'm really hoping I just wake up from the coma that I'm clearly in, and everything will be fine when I wake up in the hospital, where I'm assuming I am, where Preston is probably waiting for me.
It's like, all right, I didn't want to risk it, but if this will help you get in the hole with me, and you see as he kind of starts to climb back up, his hand starts to kind of crink up, and the digits kind of become smaller, and fur starts to pop up, and it becomes a paw, and then the second hand kind of becomes another paw, and the whole body shifts into this dark black and gray wolf that you saw leap in through the window and save you as he pulled Preston off of you. And you just see him at the end of his transformation just kind of sit there, and he shakes like a dog that's just been in some wetness, and he kind of just starts to nudge you towards the hole.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm gonna follow him into the hole. He just transformed into a dog. And I recognize the dog, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'll follow him into the hole. Plus, I think I prefer the dog over the human version of him.
Yeah.
So
So,
go to the dog.
he leaps down into the hole as a dog.
Okay. I'm gonna try to carefully go into the hole. I'm not trying to jump in. I'm trying to because I don't know how far down it is. So I'm gonna kind of crawl out and kind of hang, and then try to catch my footing in this.
Do an athletics and strength check for me. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see what that does for
Athletics and
for Connie.
Okay.
I mean, it's not terrible.
Not sure.
But you do kind of. There's a lot of stress right now, and the whole dress situation, and the idea of him kind of looking up at you as you're crawling down, and it just creates this momentary lapse of judgment as you kind of shift your weight, and you end up falling into the hole, kind of like Alice in Wonderland when she lands at the bottom of a well. And you see the shoulders kind of shaking, almost like he's laughing internally, but there's no real sound coming out of this wolf.
I'm just gonna try to dust myself off and pretend that I didn't see a dog laughing at me fall into a hole.
Yep.
And ignore it, and just sort of brush off and pretend nothing hurt me. And
okay. You see him shift back in this crouched position, and he kind of moves around you, and he's like, hey, that was real smooth, Glowworm. And he gets back up, and he shifts the bed over so it's covering the hole, and then he kind of finds his place, and you can see that there are bugs down here. There are things that have crawled through this earth, but you also notice that there's these grooves that have been kind of dug into the earth around the hole, kind of like little sleeping pods. And he takes up residence in one of them, and he kind of looks over at you. He's like, it ain't a fancy hotel, but you can take your pick of whichever one pleases you the most. There's a bit of time before the sun comes up, if you want to chit chat, glowworm, or if you just want to kind of let the day's events wash over you, that's more than fine with me too. But I will be here when the sun sets. And you see him kind of lie down and put his hands behind his head.
Okay. I look around. Can I look around to see if there's any sort of like something that I could use as not as a weapon for like to kill him, but like a stick or something that maybe I could bring with me?
Yeah. There's some strewn about lumber pieces and some what looks to be like bronze piping that you could easily pull away.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna grab one of the bronze pipes.
Okay.
And a little stick of some sort. I'm gonna crawl into the pod that is furthest away from him.
Okay. He watches you, not with like any intent, but just kind of bemused by you. You know, observant.
So does that mean you're gonna be awake if I have any questions?
It's like, yep. You're mine now, so it's my responsibility to look after you. Make sure that you're an upstanding citizen and all that. Yeah, we have our own set of laws and whatnot, so it'll be so much fun to walk you through that.
Okay. If I have any questions, I'll let you know. But I want you to know I have this pipe, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I have to.
I see that you have a pipe, and I also want you to know that I am not afraid.
So I just sort of crawl into the pod, and I'm gonna hug this pipe and this stick.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna be silent and hopefully eventually drift off.
Yeah. You don't know when it happens. You're kind of in the middle of two different fuming thoughts as to what to do, what to ask, and how to approach the questions. And almost instantly, in the middle of your own inner dispute, you just kind of see the world go black. The next night, you awaken almost mid argument with yourself, except that the second you come to, there is this nagging, almost obtrusive feeling in your gut. There's this clawing sensation that just is trying to make its way up from inside your stomach, and you can feel it just like this parasite kind of crawling its way up your esophagus and just kind of tickling the back of your throat. It is a thirst and a hunger that you've never before felt, and it is almost frightening how it is dictating every single thought. Like, you were in the middle of an argument with yourself about what's a better question to ask, and immediately the fight ends, and the best question that comes to mind is, how do I score my next meal? Where do I go? How do I do the thing that's gonna put that sweet ambrosia in my mouth? And you can see that as you come to and you have that reactionary moment of kind of gasping for air that you no longer need. You just hear this movement above you, and you look over and you see that Joshua isn't there anymore, and you can hear his heavy footfalls on the floor above you, and then you hear the water start running, and he starts humming, and for a moment it's almost like you can't believe it, because he's humming he's humming that spiritual song, Amazing Grace, and it's the one thing you wouldn't have imagined him knowing, let alone humming almost enthusiastically. But you hear the water stop, and then you hear the footfalls come closer until they're right above you. And then you just hear the floorboards kind of creak as his weight shifts, and you see his head pop up in the hole. And you see that shit-eating grin in the darkness, and he holds out his hand down towards you. He's like, so, you ready to come up, or are you still thinking about using that pipe?
I'm gonna just look at him and huff and give him a hand.
Okay. So sure enough, with his help, you easily clear the hole, come out, and he takes you to a small bar at a couple of streets down, and he just orders a couple of drinks, and he tells you not to drink it, to just pretend.
I'm so hungry.
And sure enough, like even bringing the alcohol to your mouth and your nose, you can smell what was a familiar kind of scent from the wine he's ordered from you. Like you can smell the scent of it even more acutely now. All of the ingredients really stand out to you at this moment, but it's not what you want. And sure enough, you see him bring up his shot of whiskey to his mouth, and he kind of like takes a sip of it and just puts it down, and he looks around and he's like, all right, well, here's the first introduction to being a vampire. Pick out a meal.
You're kidding.
No, and you can see that there's an interesting selection of people at the bar, but that's mostly how it goes for a little bit. The first few months is just him kind of taking you out, showing you different parts of the city, and letting you kind of run rampant as far as trying to figure out who you are, and always pulling you back at the moment that you just start to really lose yourself in the feeding. And he's always warned you that if you're going to go all out, you have to be prepared to clean up the mess. And he reminds you how he was really fortunate to have Antoine with him when he came across Preston and you. But he also tells you that he was going to feed off of you, because you have that scent, or you had that scent of strawberries that reminded him of someone from his past. and for your time together. You know, he teaches you about your abilities. He talks to you about what's expected, how he there's this hierarchy that he doesn't really adhere to. He's more of an independent shooter, uh, but that he knows enough to play the game, and it gets him a little bit of autonomy. And that was until 1980, when all of a sudden this event that's been called the Beckoning happened, and everything just went to shit. And there was a great upheaval in the way the politics were working here in Salem. And all of a sudden, he's been saddled with this new title and this new responsibility by what you have come to know as the head vampire of the city, which is called the Prince of the City. And it's made him grumpier, if he could be grumpier. But it's also made him kind of a stickler for the rules. And being as such, he's taking it upon himself to tell you that once he believes that you are ready to join vampiric society, he is going to introduce you to the prince and the rest of the primogen, which are the other elder vampires of the city, and whoever other vampires show up to the Elysium, but that you are in a position now to be your own person, and you know, you can continue living with him, that it is fine. You know, you'll always have a place in his hole. Not to sound crude. But
Lucky am I to have a place in this hole.
You will always have a place in his hole. You're his glowworm. But he does tell you to prepare yourself, you know, to clean up, and that on this particular Friday, this last Friday of the month, you will be joining him at Elysium, and you'll be meeting the prince, you'll be meeting the primogen, and you'll be meeting whoever else shows up from the vampires that live in Salem. And you'll finally get to know what it is he does for the court. And so with that, we're going to move on to our final coterie member, and the youngest of the group, even though he's playing the oldest vampire in your group. We're going to move to Brandon Urrutia, who is a graduate of FIU Theater. You can find his one-person show on YouTube at the FIU Theater page. It happens to be the first thing on there, is from what he's told me.
Yeah.
And he's also the co-host of a podcast called Have Half Doubled.
Ahado.
Which is we call Hahado, which you can hear in some places in the near future. Brandon, welcome to Vampire 5th edition.
Ooh.
You're no stranger to White Wolf, so this will be a little bit faster for you.
Okay.
The last time we saw you was August 23rd, 1943, as Isabella Gianelli sank her fangs into you and robbed you from your family. Your wife and daughter, who you have, we'll get to, I think. But as the world has gone black for you, it starts to waver back in, and color starts to seep in along a horizon until it starts to wash over your entire eyes, and you are in front of what look to be, for lack of a better word, disciples of some church or members of a cult. You're not sure, but you do see that they've been kind of whipping themselves and just uttering some dead form of Latin that barely makes any sense to you, as just, it is my fault, I have sinned, it is my fault, I've brought this on myself. And the smell of blood in the air incites you like a shark, and there's an impulse to just reach out and grab the first source of it. Do you give in?
No.
Okay. Make a willpower check for me, please. As we see. Yeah. That's not you.
Willpower 5?
Yep. It'll say, you see where that little dice, after there's a WP reroll and then there's willpower?
Yes.
On the character sheet, hit that willpower button. 1 out of 5. Not terrible, but not
at all.
Not great, unfortunately.
Well,
and
shit.
You see that your hand reaches out and your other hand kind of comes in and grabs it and pulls it back in, and as it does, your feet kind of push you up and into a standing position, and you start to stumble forward, and one of the chains that you now notice is kind of stretched out over the floor, catches your foot, and you fall onto one of these poor unfortunate souls. And as you fall onto them and their blood kind of smears against your chest and clothing, and it comes up and wafts into your nose, instinctively your mouth just opens and you latch on to the shoulder of this creature, this poor man who is just trying to make amends for whatever sin he's done. And the moment the blood rushes into your mouth, there is this disgust internally, mentally, but your beast is just ravenous. This is the first meal you've had that you've ever going to have as a vampire, and the second you start to swallow, everything else is just muted. This man's groan of agony has turned into this complacent moan of joy as this kiss of yours and this near, and as the moment of near death comes to him, you are faced with another dilemma, because you can feel his life essence draining, you can feel his strength weakening, and he's barely able to hold himself up so that you can continue feeding. So you find yourself kind of bringing your arms around and holding him up yourself. Do you drain him is the question.
I don't want to. I feel so wrong. I feel so dirty.
Let's see if your willpower continues to fail you.
Oh, of course.
But make another willpower roll, please.
Three out of 5.
Okay. You see that there's this momentary just hesitation of doing this thing to him, and you pull yourself away, and you see the 2 holes that you've dug into this man's shoulder, the 2 other dents that your lower jaw has kind of like forced itself into this clamping position. You can see the blood still gushing out from his wounds. And as you lick your lips and you see the essence, there's a moment where his hand comes up and touches the blood and then holds it back to his face, that you hear him kind of realize what's happening to him, and he starts to motion to scream. Like you can see that he starts to scramble out of your grip, and there's a moment just
I cover his mouth with my hand.
the beast inside you just reacts, and the hand comes up, and as it does, there's this voice that's not yours that just creeps up from behind your darkest corner and just says, "No, not today." And your mouth just latches back on, and this time on the part of the throat that your hand has kind of like eased into access. There's this nice kind of moment where you do silence him, but there's also that kind of grip and pull that happens and brings his neck right into your mouth, and then there's no hesitation. There is just the death that comes from this and the limp body in your hands after the deed is done. But the hunger is sated, and you can feel that voice creep back into its dark corner and just wait. But it's there. You've seen where it comes out of. You can see its eyes like a beast in the dark that has just caught the reflection of your headlights. It's there, and it's just waiting. It's lying down now, but it's waiting. And there's a dread that washes over you as this realization comes to, and your first thought is your daughter, and then your second thought is your wife, and as they come into your mind, you hear this heavy lock open as a key turns, and this very heavy wooden door kind of slides open, and standing there in the doorway is Isabella and what looks to be a priest behind her. And you can see some of the other members that are there kind of whipping themselves. They stop as the door opens, and all of them kind of like look over and have this quiet gasp of anticipation. And one of them shifts forward, and in a different form of Latin that you're used to using in your daily life as a professor, he asks if it is him. And you see him kind of like tapping his chest, like almost like he wants to be tribute to something. And she shakes her head and just motions for you to join her. The priest steps down and walks over and just kneels next to the body of the man you just killed, and he starts to perform his last rites.
It was an accident. I promise.
You see, she looks at you with a very gentle smile, and she shakes her head at you. There are no accidents, Mr. Frost. Please, follow me.
I'll follow, but the whole time does this have anything to do with Caesar or the curse? Am I is this I is this all a joke because I made the Bram Stoker joke? It's I just want to get head around everything that's actually happening here. Um, I I can I go home now?
There's a moment where she just turns to you as you're following her, and she puts her finger on your mouth, and she just kind of slides her hand on down your face very warmly.
Isabella, I'm a married man.
She's like, there will be answers. I just need you to follow me now, please.
Okay.
And she starts to continue to walk, and she takes you to what is the priest's chambers, past the reliquary, or the reliquary, however you want to pronounce it. And she sits down in a very comfortable chair, and you can just see that there is this beautiful silver framed mirror that is opposite the door, and it catches your eye because when you look into it, you don't see her reflection or yours as they should be. They're very much marred and out of focus almost. Like there's something wrong, like the mirror is warped in some way, shape, or form. But she sits down and she motions for you to sit on a stool that's next to her.
I kind of just want to look at the mirror a bit longer.
Okay.
Like really like dig in like the idea of like this. I should be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And even as you step closer to it, the distortion increases. It's almost like a funhouse mirror gone wrong. And she smiles as you step towards the mirror, but you see that she's opened the Bible. And she's kind of leafing through it.
Um, what? Can I please have an answer now? As to what exactly has happened here?
Mr. Frost, I have chosen you.
Why? And what for?
Because you question everything, but you are also a lover of truth, and you have a curiosity that reminds me of what I was when I was alive. I think that's why I chose you, and why Mr. Garter allowed it to happen.
What exactly did this have to do with Garda's pillars?
Those pillars are the only thing we have that ties who we are to mankind's past. It is proof that Carthage existed.
Carthage.
The first city of the vampires. It was supposed to be a utopia where we existed hand in hand.
Utopia.
So we believe that the person we found strapped to that pillar is one of the eldest among us. We want you to help us prove it.
Prove the likelihood of this body being of Carthage, or proving this city existed.
Proving that there are ways that even we can cheat death more than once.
How so? What the as far as I recall, this is we were viewing a dead body.
Correct. It is dead to you, or it was dead to you, but now that you are one of us, it is no longer dead, but only in torpor. It is asleep, Professor Frost. A deep sleep.
I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. The body that you had me found, the body that was tied to the pillar with a, and forgive me if I'm using the wrong terms now, a stake driven through the heart, is in something you like to call torpor. So it's not dead; it's actually alive, and you want me to what prove that that's a thing? I don't quite understand what I'm doing here. Isabella, I'm going to ask you kindly once again. Can I please just go home?
There is no place for you in your house, Professor Frost.
Actually, there is. It's right next to my wife.
No. Unfortunately, it is the next evening, and Mr. Garter has already told them about your unfortunate demise behind the theater.
What? What the?
Unfortunately.
But I'm right here.
Yes, you are there, but the Professor Frost that stepped into the theater last night is dead now. An unfortunate accident of the collapse that happened during the renovations, unfortunately.
But my family.
Your family will be taken care of. I can assure you of that. They will have enough to survive.
How is it that you've managed to take away the one thing that ever truly mattered to me?
It is an unfortunate side effect of the curse that has been gifted to you, Mr. Frost. You can choose to die a true death instead of looking forward to what has been offered to you, which is an unlimited time with which to study the secrets of the world. Isn't that worth it, Professor Frost? A chance to unlock all the gifts God has given us in scientific form. Truth.
My research will mean nothing to the world when they believe I'm dead. Why find Atlantis if I cannot share this moment with my daughter?
You may not, but proxies can. You will guide a new future, Mr. Frost. But you will do it from the shadows. There can be no greater gift than being the hand of the Emperor when you cannot be the Emperor himself. Are you a man of faith, Mr. Frost? And you see her close the Bible.
I never fancied it. No.
Hmm. You know,
I don't believe if I were to perish further, as you will,
Hmm.
that I'd find refuge somewhere. I'm a man of science at this point in my life.
Some say that God is just what science has not yet proven.
Are you a man? Are you a madam of faith?
I was. I'm slowly trying to refine it, to rekindle that flame that died so long ago.
What? What is it that you wish out of all this? Do you want to find proof of God? Do- I understand my own scientific desires, if that's how we were to phrase it. But what is it that you seek? Why
In the back of your
why
mind, you feel that creature stirring. And you feel it start to kind of pad forward like a stalking tiger. And in that gullet of yours, that crawling centipede of hunger starts to crawl back up your throat.
have you ever desired a hamburger more than ever? Because that is all I can think about right now, and I hate hamburgers.
There are 3 of them chained in the floor beneath us, Mr. Frost, if you still require
Hamburgers?
more sustenance. You can call them what you like. They are what they are, and they understand their place in life. They have sinned, and it is our task to free them of their burdens.
I don't feel comfortable doing that. If are they aware of what?
They have consented, yes.
So that they know.
They know.
They know.
They know.
So this isn't a real secret then.
To them.
Well,
But they
to
are
them
a
now.
select group of believers. The Church of the Innocent Mary is known to some to be able to wipe away sins.
Am I familiar with that name?
No, you're not a man of faith. But she smiles as she stands up and she hands you the Bible. She goes, "This is the first of many nights, Mr. Frost, that we will have. And unfortunately, you are in my care until such a time as I deem it expected of you to join our society in earnest.
Okay.
There is much to learn, but I have faith in you that you will take it all in with both skepticism and a sense of honesty.
I've only ever known honesty.
But if you hunger, there are 3 waiting to be fed on downstairs,
Can you walk with me?
if you'd like.
It'd be appreciated.
I will tell you that it becomes easier to fight the beast as you age. I would
Take
also
your
tell
word for
you
it.
I will also tell you that I am lying. And she takes your hand.
What happened to truth?
Yours is truth, Mr. Frost. Mine is faith. After
I
you.
see. I'm gonna try and like walk my way back to that room with the chained people,
Sure.
the chained members of the clergy.
It's not difficult to find. The priest is standing next to it.
Forgive me, Father.
He says something in a language you don't understand. that is you recognize it as being Italian from when Volkov and her were talking.
Ah. Buongiorno.
She opens the door and just ushers you in, and she says something to him in Italian.
I'm gonna okay. I'm gonna kneel next to one of the members.
Yeah, and you see that he is excited as you like kneel next to him. He becomes really excited, and like he's touching his chest. He's saying in broken Latin, "Is it me? Is it me? Cleanse me."
See. You're going to enjoy this a lot more than I am. And I want to make direct eye contact with Isabella.
She's looking at you.
I will follow you down this path as long as you promise one of us will show my girl Atlantis when it comes.
In every sense of the word, Professor Frost, whether it is the actual city or a placeholder for it, I will make sure that you are, if not there, at least present by proxy, and that images come to you direct from the source.
Then let us find your Carthage. I sink my teeth into this guy's neck.
He just moans pleasantly, and there's an awkwardness to it in the beginning. But
Is it like this? Is it?
I don't know what noises you're making, but that's definitely not what he's making.
Okay, that's what I'm making. I'm
Yeah,
imagining like choking on someone's neck. Blood.
Yeah, you make it. You do whatever you want.
Thank you.
And there's a moment where you can feel his life essence starting to get to that point where going beyond here will lead to death. Do you want to try to stop yourself?
It's what he asked for, so no.
Oh, perfect. And so there is a moment where instinctively his hands kind of come up to your chest, and you can feel him start to push. It's not him at full strength. He's just in that last grip of life where clinging is your only choice. And there's a moment where you feel bad, and then the fighting stops, and his hands slowly slide down until they slump on the concrete floor beneath you, and then the life is drained from him, and he just goes limp in your grip.
Okay.
There's a moment where she kind of, while you're feeding, she moves over around behind you, and she puts her hands on your shoulders almost reassuringly. And as you finish, she helps you stand and kind of hugs you from behind. And
am I still wearing my wedding ring?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a moment where it's very reminiscent of your wife and how she used to do it whenever she would come up behind you. And there's that shiver that kind of goes down the back of someone having walked over your grave, as she kind of takes it as a request to stop, and she backs away. And
Thanks. My wife just buried me, I assume.
I mean, Not yet, but we can go to your funeral if you'd like. Once everyone has left, of course.
Actually, I would appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you.
And life is very formulaic for you. There's the wake up, the asking of how hungry you are, the moment of feeding, and then the evening's work. And you come to learn that she can see dead people, and that the prince of the city calls her the speaker of the dead, or the speaker for the dead, and that she is tasked with finding out what happens to vampires who are killed and relegating their story before the collected group at an Elysium, and then just kind of letting the story of that vampire be told. Since you cannot exist in history books, she is the closest thing to a legacy that you will ever know. But this happens until 1980, when there's a situation that's called the Beckoning, and all the elder vampires around the world have gone missing. And it is one of the greatest mysteries that she's been tasked with, because not only did the prince and his primogen of Salem just vanish overnight, but several other well-to-do kindred also disappeared, who weren't as close to Cain as the prince and his primogen were, but were old nonetheless. And so age has become a big thing that older vampires are starting to fear, especially her, given that she's never told you how long she's been alive, but she has told you that she has been alive for at least 2 centuries. And so some of the primogen that disappeared were around that cusp of 2 or 3 centuries old. And so with the shift that it's taken and the amount of years that the Camarilla has struggled to come to terms with what's happened and establish a new order in Salem, it is now that she has deemed you worthy to become a member of society, so that she can go about trying to figure out what happened and let you devote your time to whatever pursuits you want, instead of having to kind of stay at her foot, or in her shadow. And so that brings us all to April 27th, 1984, as all of you are now arriving at what has been a focal point in the city. Some know it from its history, some know it because it is the last place they were alive in, but you all arrive at the Orpheus Theater, and it is closed for the evening to regular people, to regular humans of Salem, but it is open to the rest of you. For tonight, on the 4th Friday of every month, is Elysium. It is the one day and the one place where violence is not allowed. There is no no physical altercations that can be made and there is just a safe haven for everyone, no matter what clan or belief they have. Elysium is sacred. All of you arrive with your sires in tow, and they kind of lead you through the front hall, which has, and you can see that this theater is an establishment that is supposed to be safe for vampires. There's no ticket booth outside. There's just two great double doors that lead into a darkened hallway that has some lighting. The ticket booth exists here. There's two more sets of double doors that lead into another hallway that leads into a kind of ticket taker podium. A single set of double doors lead into the main lobby that has these three epic looking pillars kind of set up in a triangular fashion to counter the triangular shape of the counter where the popcorn, the candy, and the concession stands exists. There are two theater houses, one to the left as you come in and one to the right. The one to the left is strictly for cinema. The one to the right is a stage house. It can be adapted to cinema, but it's mostly kept for stage performances, for musical acts, and things of that nature, open mics and whatnot. That is where everyone is gathering. And inside the Orpheus staged theater is just this magnificent proscenium arch that looks to have been gilded in gold and silver. There is just depictions of angels and demons, with the angels above trying to keep the demons beneath, and a semblance of some kind of divine entity at the height of the arch. On the stage itself, you see a handful of seats, all of them high-backed, regal-looking seats. There's the one centered seat that looks a little bit nicer, that sits on a dais and has this air of magnificence to it. The seating itself has been removed and kind of locked away to the sides, creating a very central rectangle of a meeting place, and there are small round tables that have been placed, not for sitting but for standing, like cocktail tables at a bar or something like that. No stools, but you do notice that off to the sides, behind where the seats kind of rest, you can see what looks to be a collection of a dozen men and women. All of them have a leather kind of choker around their neck, and each one has a symbol that's branded into the choker itself. And as you enter, you can see that you are one of the last groups to come in. You see that there is a woman that comes out and takes her seat at the center chair. There's another lady, a gentleman, a second gentleman, a third gentleman, and then a third lady that kind of create this triangle of feminine power where what you assume is the prince of the city is at the center, and then her two other ladies are at the ends, and then the gentlemen are in between them. strewn about the room are a handful of people. You can count at least 7, not including your 3 sires. So there's a good 10 to a dozen or so people here of all different walks of life. And you see that there is a moment as one of the vampires whistles and everybody kind of quiets down, and you notice that he now is at the foot of the stage, at the base of the stage, on the audience level, and he has 2 people on either side of him. So there's 5 total people up there. And after everyone quiets down, he just yells out, "All right, so this meeting is coming to order. Your sheriff is now collecting the minutes, and we will take any new business. Anyone have any new business?" All of you see this very elegant, demure, kind of thin, olive-skinned woman raise her hand, and the sheriff nods at her, turns back to the members on the stage. The lady in the center nods, and the sheriff says, "The floor recognizes Isabella Gianelli." She steps forward, and she immediately kind of gets not everyone's attention, but she does speak a little softer than most. But you can see that she's directing it all at the members on the stage. And she says, "If it please the court, I would like to introduce my childer, as he has been in tow for some time, and it is time, I think, that he has a place amongst us here in Salem and in the court of Prince Birmingham herself. So if it please the court, I would like to introduce Albert Frost." And some of the people kind of like start whispering to each other. They start looking, and they see this man who was standing next to her step forward. What does Albert Frost look like now?
Oh, he looks like he fucks.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does. He stands about like, oh man, what was the height that we said? I think he's like 5'10", 5'11". He wears a small pair of glasses that he doesn't need, I think is right.
What a nerd.
It's just like a force of habit.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps the hair short, no facial hair. He's currently wearing like a blazer with elbow pads.
Ooh, a sports jacket.
Yeah, he's trying to look he's trying to look how he imagines a professor looks nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see the sheriff step forward. He kind of inspects you, looks you up and down. He's like, "All right, Mr. Frost, for the court, what is your lineage?"
Yes. My lineage is child of Isabella Gianelli, child of Matteo de Lattivioso, child of Antonio Agustin Giovanni.
There's a moment where he kind of expects more, and then he kind of looks at you. He's like, All right. Well, grandsire, great grandsire, and he looks back at the dais, and the woman on the prominent seat just kind of nods courteously, and he's like, "All right, take a moment and let me have you sit over there." And he kind of points off to one of the chairs to the side. He's like,
Yeah.
"No, thank you." Again, the sheriff steps back into his place, and he's like, "Is there any other new business that we should take care of?" And you see this beautiful and almost intimidating blonde, tall woman step forward in this amazingly regal power suit that just looks like a combination of the biggest 80s power move, but also in this very traditional turn of the century style. And the sheriff, without looking this time, says, "The court recognizes Anastasia Richards, please." And Anastasia kind of doesn't address the court themselves. She's actually addressing everyone. And you notice that as she clears her throat, there's this amazing feel like she is more beautiful than she is, and almost everyone has their eye on her. Like, there's a couple of people who were looking at Albert Frost as he went to take his seat, but the second she cleared her throat, everybody kind of turned, tried to look away, and then kind of stayed looking at her. And she says, "I too have someone that I would like to introduce to the court, as I believe she is ready to take her place amongst us, and I have nothing but utter faith that she will do us proud moving forward. To the court, I introduce my child, Miss Jane Arwen." And the sheriff, everybody is just kind of waiting with bated breath, and the sheriff kind of takes a moment to clear his throat, and he's like, "For the court, please, Miss Arwen, if you could state your lineage."
I am childer of Anastasia Richards, childer of Joseph Smythe, childer of Grigory Vintok, childer of Joanne Gustafsson, childer of Miriam Constantine, child of Augustus Caesar.
And you see everybody just kind of taking a sharp breath, and immediately whispers start to spread like wildfire in this room. And even the sheriff is kind of like counting all the names, and he turns back and he's like, this goes back to Rome, my lady. And there's almost a hesitant kind of smile from the prince, and she looks down at you and she's like, "We look forward to seeing what you have to offer, Miss Arwen. Please join Mr. Frost." And the sheriff, like, still looking at Anastasia, kind of motions off to the side in a kind of vague reference to where Albert Frost is. And then as Anastasia kind of backs away, everybody starts to kind of regain their composure and start to remember where they are and things like that. But she just kind of, as you walk away from her, she kind of looks at you and she just kind of taps the side of her head and smiles at you. The sheriff kind of looks around and he's like, "All right, well, if there's no other new business," and that's when one of the men at his side steps forward and just kind of clears his throat. And he's like, "If it please the court," and he kind of like holds up his hand. He's like, Hi, I'm one of the whips. I'm most of you know me. Well, it's not important. I have I guess I have a child too that I'd like to introduce to the court. This is Connie Eastworm, everyone. And he kind of steps back into line. And the sheriff steps forward, kind of looks you up and down, and he's like, all right, state your lineage, please, for the court.
I am child of Joshua Allen's, child of Thomas Willoughby.
And you see that
That's it.
yeah, he looks at you like expecting more, and then when you tell him that's it, he looks back. There's a bit of a scoff as he turns around, and he looks up at the court, and he's just like, he looks over at Joshua first, and then he looks up at the court, and he's like, sire and grandsire, your honor is minimal. And again, you see the prince just kind of like nod and just smile. And she says, not everyone is required to know their entire lineage, Mr. Green. This is not the way that we work. And you see he kind of clears his throat. He's like, yes, you're right. And he motions for you to join Albert and Jane over by the seats to the side. And he goes over, he's like, all right, now I assume there's no new business. And you see a couple of people raise their hands. And they're like, is this where we introduce ourselves if we're new to the city? And the sheriff kind of puts his hand in his face, and he's like, yes, this is new business since you are new to the city. And the two kind of step forward, and he's like, very well, I'm new. My name is Antoine Malcolm Davies, and I used to live here, but I left, and now I'm back, and I just wanted to make sure we were still keeping up with the traditions. And you see the prince just kind of smile. Mr. Davies is well known to us. Yes, thank you for adhering to the protocol. And then you see another gentleman step forward, just very disheveled looking, very kind of outskirts of town, poor, just has a hoodie on, and as he removes it, you can see that this guy is just hideous. There's other ugly people in the room, but this guy's a monster. Like, he has this misshapen kind of lumpy face. One eye is a little lower than the others. His ears are sharp pointed, kind of elven ears, and part of his mouth kind of droops on one side, and he's like, yeah, my name's Jackson Gibbs, but you can call me JJ. I'm new to the city. I'm from the East Coast, but things is rough over there, so I wanted to make a change. I guess you can tell what I am, and can't hide it. So if you need anything, just come talk to JJ. I'll try my best to make it happen. And sure enough, a couple of people laugh quietly to themselves. Some of the other people take note of who JJ is and what he is more than anything. All three of you can recognize him as a Nosferatu clan member, because that's one of the easiest clans to spot, and one of the ones that you would have been told about by your sires. The other easy ones to spot usually are the Gangrel because they have short fuses, and they will usually have an animalistic feature or two, or some kind of tick. But otherwise, there is business that is handled. They talk about the situation with the children that have been going missing lately in Salem, and they talk about the situation with how they believe that there is some kind of intrusion that is happening on Salem. Some of the West Coast itself has fallen to the Sabbat, and this is the first time that any of you hear the word Sabbat. And some of the people are talking about how the cities on the West Coast have given themselves to the anarchs, and the Camarilla is slowly becoming an old mentality, and that there is no place for it anymore in this world, and that the beckoning has kind of proven that. That why else would the elders kind of disappear and leave the world as it is if not for some greater scheme? But again, these are dismissed as just hearsay and rumors and conspiracy theories. At the end of the evening, everyone is allowed to use any of the blood dolls. And as they say that, you see that the people with the chokers are brought out and allowed to intermingle with everyone. It is explained that blood dolls are humans who know they are to be used to fed to vampires. The only rule is that you can't kill a blood doll. So, if any of you would like to feed, you have the option. And when it is explained, all of you have that little tingle in your stomach that kind of starts to creep up. But it isn't terribly obtrusive.
I'm open to feeding.
I'm gonna feed.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I know I have to feed from someone who has alcohol in their system.
There's no one
But
there who fits that description. So,
Okay.
if you would like to feed, you're going to have to make a test.
Okay.
So that'll be your first test of the character.
Okay.
So I believe if we look at your Bane, you have to make a wits and resolve
Okay.
to feed off of somebody who doesn't match your je ne sais quoi. So, if you want, you can go over here and then either use wits or resolve to start the roll, and then just add the second one to it. It should be. Oh, yeah. For sure. 5 successes is easy enough. You notice that the way they all walk and the way they all kind of keep to themselves, there's no one that matches your prerequisite. But you see that some people are feeding, particularly the other 2 that were sitting by you. They're openly feeding. So you decide to join in, and sure enough, you manage to stomach the unpalatable, disgusting, non-delicious blood, but it is blood nonetheless. And sure enough, after a moment, as everybody's kind of meandering about, your sires come over to the three of you as you are gathered, and one of the members that was sitting up on the stage kind of comes over to the six of you, and it is one of the gentlemen that was sitting to the prince's right. He's got this long blonde hair that kind of comes down past his shoulder blade, like right to the bottom of his armpit, where his armpit would be. It's tied back in a ponytail, but it is kind of loose. There's a couple strands that are just wild and unkept. No facial hair. These very, very soft, almost seafoam eyes, and just this kind of beaten posture. Like he could be a tall, handsome man, but he's kind of forward hunched. He's got his hands kind of clapped together in front of him. It's almost like he's afraid to be himself. And he comes over to your group, and he's like, if I could ask the elders, I'd like to give a task to this new group of kindred. And he's like, he looks to his side, and he's like, yes, I know. He's like, I have a theory, and I'd like for it to be proven or disproven at your leisure. And then he kind of like, he nods and he starts to back away. And Joshua grabs him and he's like, listen, you're a primogen. Act like it. Look, you have standing over all of us here, according to the traditions. So if that's what you want, then that's what they'll have to do. And he looks over at the other two sires of yours, and he's like, as a whip, I can enforce his desire. I don't want to. I'm going to let you decide for yourselves what you want to do with each other. And he looks over at Connie. He's like, you, Glowworm, are going to have to do what he says. Anastasia kind of looks at you, Jane, and she's like, it is up to you, but it would be beneficial to you and to us to have a primogen in our pocket. So it's your choice. Isabella, on the other hand, just looks at you. Is like, it is not for me to decide. So, but this is something that you would want, no?
How far in like research am I when it comes to the Carthage?
The last couple of years, you've stagnated.
Okay.
You've hit this very kind of flat plateau of all the references to Carthage kind of pointing to Hannibal and his conquest, and not the city that she's talking about.
How about in my Atlantis hunt?
Oh, that's even colder.
Seeing as the three of us have been brought together for this, I could use it a night out, so to speak. Um, so, sir, gladly. I'm all in, I suppose. I don't know about my fellows here.
Right. So he looks at Joshua, who is kind of spoken for Connie. But then he looks over at Anastasia and Jane, and he's like, so can I count on you as well, Miss Arwen? Was it? I think you're muted, Jane. No. I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear you. So.
Oh.
Oh. Ooh. There was a nice little moment there where the Streamlabs were just like, go fuck yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know what happened.
That's okay. I was wondering why you were quiet. But yeah, he looks over, and at this point, Joshua introduces him to the rest of you. He's like, this is Samuel Hunter, for those of you that aren't aware of him. He is one of the most trusted Primogen that Geraldine has on her council. So I recommend... And he's looking straight at Connie at this. He's like, I recommend you are on your best behavior around him. And he kind of... Go ahead.
In Italian,
Ooh.
am I familiar with the kindred types or no?
Not really. There's been talk of like 3 different clans other than your own.
Okay. Nosferatu.
Yeah, Nosferatu are given.
Yeah.
She's told you that you'll know a Ventru by them denying to feed, because they have a particular style of feeding. Like they have a particular target that they feed off of.
Okay.
And you're told that all the Malkavians are crazy.
Okay. Yeah. So in Italian, I turn to Isabella and I ask, Malkavian, yes?
She nods. So he hands you a small file folder, and he's like, this is a selection of news clippings from a dock, a kind of warehouse on the docks of the river, in the north part of town. It's not far from part of my territory, so it kind of got my attention. Yes, I'm getting to it. Thank you. Almost like talking to no one who has hurried him, he just kind of apologizes, and he says there's been some strange movement as of late, and it isn't anything that is mortal related that I can see. I would have just turned a blind eye if it was like drugs or something. I don't care about drugs, but I care about this. This is different. And from his pocket, you see him pull out a shotgun shell that looks to be a kind of very deep red plastic covering, and like that nickel kind of casing. And he's like, this is something else that I found that troubles me. Can you do anything about this? See what this is, figure out why this is coming into the city. This could be bad for us, for all of us. And he turns, he's like, yes, even you. And he's like, sorry, it's just, he just doesn't stop. He's like, please figure out what this is. I just, it doesn't smell normal. And I'm afraid to even test it to see what it does. But that's not a shotgun shell that I've ever seen before. And it troubles me. And as he kind of nods at all of you and just kind of again washes his hands of like the file folder as he's giving it off to you, he's like, okay, all right, I look forward to your findings, and all of you have a pleasant evening, and don't mind him. Thank you. Okay, goodbye. And you see him just kind of back away and then just scurry off into the crowd with the other elders that were on top of the stage. And so, with that, we come to the end of tonight's episode, and we have a few questions to ask as our group is introduced to the vampires of the city. They are now members of Salem proper, and they have their first task and their first friend or ally or adversary in the form of this primogen who has given them their task. And we will see how everything turns out and where the group goes in the next episode. Have a pleasant evening and good night.